All right, let's dive right in. We hear about national debt all the time, right? But the numbers are just so astronomical, they almost stop meaning anything. So today, we're going to try to put some real context around one of the biggest numbers in the world and tackle, well, the $100 trillion question.
$100 trillion. I mean, just look at all those zeros. That's roughly the amount of debt that all the world's governments have racked up combined. It is a staggering figure, almost impossible to really wrap your head around. But where is it all coming from?
So with all that debt swirling around the globe, the first question that pops into your head is probably the most obvious one. Who exactly owes the most money?
If we're just talking about the raw numbers, the single biggest IOU out there, the answer, well, it probably won't surprise you at all.
Yep, it's the United States. With a national debt currently over $30 trillion and still climbing, America easily holds the title for the most debt in absolute raw dollar terms.
But here's the thing, and it's a big one. That's not really a fair comparison. The US has the world's largest economy, so of course its numbers are going to be bigger. To really get a handle on whether this massive figure actually matters, we need to look at it in a completely different way.
And the picture changes completely when we use a much better metric, the debt-to-GDP ratio. This compares a country's debt to its entire economic output for a year. And when you look at it that way, suddenly the USA is nowhere near the top. The real leaders here, the countries with the highest debt relative to their economy, are actually Japan and Greece. Both owe more than double what their entire country produces in a year.
But wait, even that doesn't tell the whole story. You can have two countries with almost identical debt-to-GDP ratios, yet one is considered a super safe bet for investors, while the other is seen as a huge risk. So, what gives? What's the difference?
First, let's just be clear what we're talking about. Public debt is basically a series of promises. A government issues something called a bond, which is just a fancy IOU. Lenders, that could be banks, insurance companies, or even regular people like you, give the government money now. In return, the government promises to pay it back later with a little extra interest for the trouble. The very name bond implies trust.
And that trust, that confidence, is everything. It's the key difference. Just look at this. The UK and Sri Lanka, back in 2021, both had a debt-to-GDP ratio around 100%. But the UK was rated AA, a prime top-tier investment. Sri Lanka, CCC, a junk bond on the verge of default. Same story with Japan and Greece. Both have debt over 200% of their GDP, but Japan gets a solid A+ rating while Greece gets a BB+. At the end of the day, it all comes down to one simple thing. Do lenders believe you're good for the money?
Now, it's really easy to look at all this and think debt is just this terrible, scary thing. But here's a thought that might surprise you. Debt can actually be good. In fact, you could argue our entire modern world is built on it. So how on earth can borrowing massive sums of money actually be a tool for good?
Well, when it's used wisely, debt can be an incredibly powerful force for progress. There are 4 key ways it can help build a better world, from pulling us out of recessions to creating real physical things that last for generations.
Okay, first up, automatic stabilizers. Think about things like unemployment benefits or food stamps. When a recession hits and lots of people lose their jobs, these programs kick in automatically. They're funded by debt and they pump money into people's pockets, which keeps the whole economy from just seizing up. This is a huge reason why the 2008 financial crisis was the Great Recession and not another Great Depression.
Second, you can use debt to build real, physical stuff. Take China after that 2008 crisis. They unleashed this unbelievable $500 billion stimulus plan. Now, you could argue it was a bit reckless, but it funded things you can actually go out and touch and see.
And the results? They're undeniable. That massive debt-fueled spending spree built thousands and thousands of kilometers of high-speed railway. Here's the kicker. Even if that debt were to cause a massive financial blow-up tomorrow, the railway isn't going anywhere. Millions of people get to use that incredible infrastructure every single day, all because of a financial choice made over a decade ago.
But of course, it's not all shiny, high-speed trains and economic stability. Debt can go wrong, and when it does, it can go wrong really, really fast. And when it becomes unmanageable, governments are stuck with a terrible choice with absolutely no good options.
So here's the dilemma. You can try to pay the debt back, but that often means crippling budget cuts, austerity that guts public services. Or you can just not pay it back. That's called a default, and that can shatter investor confidence and trigger a total economic meltdown. Either way,
Ordinary citizens are the ones who feel the pain. Let's look at that first bad choice, trying to pay it back. In 2021, Zambia spent 40%, 40, of its entire government budget just on debt repayment. Compare that to the 8% it managed to spend on healthcare. When debt payments eat up that much of the budget, it forces families into impossible choices, like having to decide between buying food or getting medicine.
And then there's this awful moral problem of what's called odious debt. What happens when some corrupt dictator, like Mobutu in Zaire or Marcos in the Philippines, borrows billions of dollars and just pockets it for himself? When that regime finally falls, should the people who never saw a single penny of that money be the ones forced to pay it all back? It's just a terrible, terrible cycle.
And to see what happens with that second bad choice, default, you just have to look at the Latin American lost decade. In the 70s, money was pouring into the region. But when a global recession hit in the early 80s and interest rates shot through the roof, the party was over. In 1982, Mexico announced it couldn't pay its debts. That set off a domino effect. What followed was a whole decade of economic chaos, hyperinflation, and a devastating spike in poverty and crime across the entire continent. A true catastrophe, all fueled by a wave of international debt.
So after all that, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we come back to our main question. We've seen how debt can build a nation, and we've seen how it can completely break one. So, does it actually matter? Well, economists have been tearing their hair out trying to answer that for years. A lot of studies suggest there's some kind of threshold, a point where debt stops helping economic growth and actually starts to hurt it. But here's the problem. Nobody can agree on where that point is. Is it 77% of GDP, 90%, or maybe there's no magic number at all? The truth is, we just don't know for sure.
So if it's not about a magic number, what is it about? Well, the crucial point is this: confidence. Debt is fine, even at crazy high levels, as long as you can convince everyone that you can and will reliably pay it back. It's all about trust. That's why Japan can handle debt over 200% of its GDP, while other countries fall into crisis at half that level.
At the end of the day, government debt is a trade-off. It's a powerful tool that lets a country pull resources from the future to invest right here, in the present, whether that's fighting a pandemic, building a new bridge, or funding a school. The entire system works on this incredibly delicate balance of confidence, and the danger, as it has always been, is losing that balance.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If debt is fundamentally a trade-off between today and tomorrow, it really forces us to ask, what kind of future are we building with the money we borrow today, and who exactly will be the one to pay the price?